Alright, so Jimbei versus Who's Who. Fight starts out in chapter 998. We see Jimbei walk into this room with this awesome panel of Who's Who and his subordinates, as Who's Who taunts Jimbei, telling him to have a little pride, former warlord of the sea, for picking on his subordinates. And Jimbei drops a cold line saying he'd prefer his more prestigious title, Helmsman of the Straw Hat Crew. Then Who's Who drops the dialogue that he remembers him from being a warlord, which gave us the hint that he was part of the world government at some point, and Jimbei says, maybe I'd recognize you if I see your face. We effectively don't get a meaningful update to this fight until chapter 1017, with a few throwaway panels in between of just cutaways where Jimbei's actively fighting and Who's Who was actively fighting. Now Who's Who did have some visible damage on his face, actually kind of severe at one point, which is interesting to say the least. But when we cut back, Jimbei now is pretty damaged. He's bleeding very visibly from his eye, got scuff marks all over his body, and we get the revelation that it's been Jimbei versus Who's Who and his subordinates this entire time. And Who's Who was actually taunting Jimbei about this, confused as to why Jimbei wasn't complaining. And Jimbei, always stoic, says, this started as a battle of 5,000 against 30,000. We were always going to be outnumbered. I never expected you to fight me one-on-one to begin with. And Who's Who laughs and says, very perceptive of you, you've been a real pain. And Jimbei goes on to say, that's right, our job is to keep the officers occupied. We cut away for a bit, then we see Who's Who reacting to some of the gifters switching sides in a brief little scene, which exists to explain away why the fodder basically disappeared from this fight. The gifters even the odds, so to speak, so it finally got condensed down to a one-on-one between Jimbei and Who's Who from this point forward. Despite the fact that Who's Who had a ton of help to begin with, he makes the remark that he doesn't know what's happening now, obviously with the betrayal, but it's clear he has to actually try going forward. So it explains to us that he was holding back the whole time, which makes it look a little bit better. He pulls out his short blade, semi-dagger. It looks like it's gonna be this giant sword, but it's actually just this small little blade, and he uses blade pistol, still in base. He shoots this attack at Jimbei, who uses Fishman karate to effectively dissipate the attack with a variation of break fist. Don't forget though that Jimbei is kind of sending a counter, so he's dissipating that attack, but he's also countering because Fishman karate, he doesn't need to make physical contact with you to be able to damage you. Fishman karate is effectively advanced armament haki light. It is the cheap version of that because it is during negation and you don't have to make physical contact, so it kind of fits both criteria. During negation is because of the fact that it actually affects the water within your body. This is why Jimbei in the Fishman Island arc could actually damage Luffy without haki with his attack. So Luffy's supposed to be impervious to blunt force damage. Now this was ranged and it was weird, but they put a highlight and emphasis on the fact that Jimbei could damage him because of this, and it was because he can manipulate the water within your body. So it effectively, the force carries through the air, moisture, through the water in your body. Now, seems Who's Who figures this out. Who's Who uses shave, jumps into the air, and Jimbei is able to track him pretty quickly, notices him back in the air. Who's Who uses Tempest Kick. Jimbei then remarks, should I call this Iron Body then, as he puts up his guard. Those are the 6 powers, the fighting abilities of the government agents, which reminds me, I heard about a member of the secret government agency CP9 who escaped from jail. Seems strange that a secret agent would be in prison, however. To which Who's Who finally transforms into his hybrid form, says, haha, I can't believe you remember that. Yes, that was me. I knew you, but you didn't know me. This tells us, as Who's Who alluded to, he's fighting seriously now. He hadn't used the rokushiki techniques throughout the fight earlier. It also seems he hadn't used his hybrid form. Who's Who goes on to say, I happen to like what I am now, but I went through hell all because of a single little mistake 12 years ago. Of course, we know that mistake was losing the gum fruit. We're not going to really get into all that here, but Shanks stole the fruit from him. He now hates Shanks. Effectively, that kind of extends to Luffy at this point because Luffy has the fruit. Now, there's another interesting line of dialogue here where Who's Who says, you know, they used to say I had just as much potential as the genius Rob Lucci, and some people have ran with this and like try to say that that means Who's Who is by any stretch relative to Rob Lucci. Even if we took this at face value and assumed the people that said this were correct, having the same potential does not mean achieving that same potential or having the same rate of growth. We obviously understand that it's very clear that Rob Lucci awakened his devil fruit. Who's Who has not awakened. We also know that Rob Lucci has advanced his rokushiki techniques like finger pistol into now being able to use hand pistol, which later we'll see Who's Who's finger pistol spot, and it's directly inferior to Rob Lucci's hand pistol spot, right? So there's no comparison between Rob Lucci and Who's Who, just for anybody that's wondering, and this statement would never get you there. Who's Who uses Fang pistol. It seems Jimbei dodged it. It may have glanced him. Jimbei then says, yes, I've never seen those 6 powers before. I pity you, but I have nothing to do with your fate. But so far, we've seen pretty high relativity between the two. They've both been able to react to each other's attacks. Nothing really seems to be cleanly landed. Now, there's one interesting piece of dialogue from the Cyberpol agents on Onigashima, where one of them says, whichever side wins does not matter to us, but there's one death we must confirm before this is over, and they're actually talking about Who's Who. Their Cyberpol agent says, are you sure it's him? That classified intelligence he ran off with was old, and he's no real threat to the government anymore. And the other guy says, it doesn't set a good precedent that you can escape from us and live to tell the tale, to which Top Hat replies, assuming he survives this, of course, and Guernica says he is fighting Jimbei after all. So CP0 respects Jimbei, and they seem to think that Jimbei is going to win this fight, but they planned on killing Who's Who either way. Who's Who now starts using Moonwalk, to which the fighter are now saying he is now going all out, using the rokushiki and his hybrid form. At this point, we see that while moonwalking, Who's Who uses Fang pistol once again. Jimbei tries blocking it, and we see that even with armament haki, it still made him bleed. But didn't do massive damage, but it still broke through his armament haki. We see that he starts barraging Jimbei with these Fang pistols, and Jimbei actually uses high-speed movement here. You see this whip sound effect, and gets out of the way. These finger pistols start taking out a ton of the fodder, and Who's Who laughs, taunting Jimbei over the fact that even his armament haki can't stop his fangs. He tells Jimbei, you made the right decision to dodge. Your typical armament haki won't stop these fangs from tearing you apart. Though I'm surprised to see how quickly you can move on land, Jimbei, you know, for a fishman. And Jimbei says, I don't believe this. Don't you know casual racism against the fishmen is out of style these days. So Jimbei always repping for his people, doesn't take that disrespect. Who's Who then launches down into this primal stance where he prepares to launch at Jimbei. Looks really cool. It actually looks like he's haki charging. Haki charging is super weird, so you could argue that like when they do something like this, they're kind of amplifying themselves. You can see this lightning effect coming off Who's Who. It's really cool in the color panel, as Who's Who says, sorry about that. Anyway, there's something I wanted to ask you, as he now combines Iron Body or armament haki with his fangs in a really awesome scene. He uses Fang Flash, launches at Jimbei. Jimbei is able to react, block it, counter it with Fishman Jujitsu in an awesome moment where we can see the armament of Jimbei, the armament of Who's Who. He grabbed onto his saber teeth, flipped Who's Who down and slammed him to the ground, where Who's Who is now bleeding, while using Fishman Jujitsu low tide shoulder roll. Who's Who screams out in pain, to which Jimbei now starts using water shot. He starts shooting these water droplets at Who's Who from range, to which Who's Who's able to dodge with shave once more. It actually seems like Jimbei may have lost sight of him for a second, regroups on a ledge and says, that hurt. Anyway, I wanted to ask you about a story I heard in jail from a guard. While I was there undergoing terrible torments, he laughed and told me to pray. Apparently there was a figure that slaves would pray to in the long distant past, a legendary warrior they believed would one day free them, the sun god Nika. Did he exist, or did they dream him up? They thought he'd bring smiles to their faces and deliver them from suffering. So Oda wanted to tie this fight heavily into foreshadowing Luffy's Gear 5 later. Who's Who launches from the ledge down at Jimbei, to which Jimbei is able to react. And Who's Who seems like he is resolved in this moment, saying his prison time felt endless, but he actually clung to that strange legend of theirs. Save me, I thought. Someone, anyone, save me. To which Jimbei says, why would you ask me about this? And Who's Who says, because you led the Sun Pirates. I heard there were former slaves in that crew. And what is Fishman history but the history of slavery? So he's talking shit on his race. And Jimbei doesn't take too kindly to this. Now, at this point, you saw that Who's Who went high. Initially, Jimbei had his guard up, but when he said this to Jimbei, he landed a finger pistol to Jimbei's gut, and it cleanly lands. Now, you could maybe make an argument that Jimbei is caught by surprise, like by what he had just said, because he was questioning about why he's asking about this. I don't think that's going to get you very far. They're in the heat of the fight. They've had a conversation the whole fight. Jimbei just got outpaced in this moment. He then starts getting overwhelmed with the spot technique that I was talking about earlier, finger pistol spots, as you see that despite the fact that Jimbei is almost using like full body armament at this point, you see it on his face, he is still bleeding and getting pierced by these spots, but he is holding firm, just enduring it, trying to take it. The fighter is all cheering Who's Who on, saying he's jabbing him out, chipping him out. I can't believe it. Our Toby Roppo is even stronger than a former warlord. Who's Who goes on to say that the guard that told him the story was basically killed days later, and I started thinking that I was in danger too, so I risked it all to escape, and here I am today. Is it deadly to even know about that legend? Tell me everything you know. Now at that moment, Jimbei basically does that thing where I'm talking like it's like haki charging, where you see these blue lightning effects coming off Jimbei now. It's clear in this moment that something pretty drastic changed, because as I made mention of, Jimbei was getting pierced by these finger pistols, and now all of a sudden the finger pistols crack. So the armament haki got strengthened in this moment pretty clearly. Jimbei used this to his advantage, as when he uses this like haki charge, so to speak, it basically sends Who's Who flying off him when his fingers crack, and Jimbei jumps and uses this to his advantage, grabs him with Fishman karate shark grip, grabs hold of his hand. You see all these lightning effects, and he has, "I have nothing to say to the likes of you." Who's Who tries to counter with a kick, and all of a sudden you see that Jimbei just effectively tanked this kick point blank to the face. Who's Who is desperate at this point, tries to go for a puncturing fang pistol, tries to shoot one of those fang pistols out of his mouth. It's not like the same bite he did earlier, but he tries to shoot the fang pistol out, and Jimbei again like tanks the shit out of this, or just blocks this. It just dissipates. It did nothing, to where Who's Who is like, what the hell happened? This guy snapped all of a sudden. Jimbei then let go of the shark grip, says Fishman karate secret art demon brick fist, and when he deflected that fang pistol, he kind of sent Who's Who flying back, but to not let him get away, he stepped on his tail to keep his position, and he sent the demon brick fist straight to Who's Who's face, saying, if you're going to run your mouth about history, be ready for the consequences, be ready for what you're stepping into first, and finishes Who's Who with the demon brick fist. This is the end of the fight. Jimbei has won at this point. And to me, there's two interpretations you could take. You could take an interpretation that Jimbei did get stronger in this fight. I would probably say that's more likely than a potential situation where Jimbei just held back. It's possible that Jimbei wanted to get information out of him about what he was talking about with the gum fruit, about the history. Possible he wanted that. Possible he wanted to know how he knew him from the start of the fight. So you could take two interpretations, but if you take the interpretation that Jimbei did get stronger in the fight, it would make some sense, because I don't think Jimbei is going to be sitting there trying to allow Who's Who to damage him. His armament haki clearly got stronger to a point where he got way more durable. It broke the finger pistols. He also seemed to have more AP at that moment. So he locked in, finished the fight. I don't think Jimbei was really in any danger here. And considering he was fighting a ton of people at once to begin the fight, I would classify Jimbei mid-diffing Who's Who, although that might even be generous. If this was in water, it'd be a straight low diff for sure. But I'd say it's a mid-diff because they were going relative for a long time. Jimbei had to go all out to win. It seemed like he had to have gotten stronger in the end of the fight to win in totality. Jimbei, though, he didn't collapse at the end like, you know, Sanji or Zoro after all the damage that they had taken. I mean, there's context involved with those things though. But even like Robin collapsed at the end of her fight. Jimbei was fine. He was moving around right after the fact, like nothing really happened. So this definitely didn't push him to the absolute limit. I don't think he was really ever in danger of losing at any point. He was never fatally wounded. The finger pistol was like the only big thing that landed on him, and I don't think that that was gonna be close to killing him. We've seen Jimbei take a magma fist through his chest from Akainu and live to tell the tale. So Who's Who was in no way, shape, or form gonna be putting Jimbei down anytime soon. Jimbei could have continued fighting for a long period, I would say, but he may have gotten stronger. As far as haki in this fight, Jimbei has some underrated feats in the series. Really great endurance, negation, and some other utilities. If they were to run it back right now, given what we just saw, I think Jimbei low diffs him. And I did say in my Katakuri video that there's not really a metric to say Jimbei had gotten stronger from WCI. If you take the interpretation that he got stronger here, you could disagree with that and you could retract that statement there. But you could also just say that even if he got stronger, there's still not a metric to say he got faster, which basically was the whole point of what I brought up in that Katakuri video. Anyway, given that the only things we really see of any difference was the durability factor and AP arguably, he didn't really like showcase greater speed. So that's the fight. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.